learned from my mother when they said to her at the M&M cafeteria, Mamie, I'm so sorry. You can't do this work anymore. Being on your feet all day long. I know you're giving it your best effort. But Mr. Morrison, who loved Mama very much, it's just too much for you now. And he gave her a check, gave her a bonus, and just said, "I'm gonna have to replace you." And I learned something from my mother when she came home. She was ironing, and she sang to herself. My mother used to sing at nightclubs, but this one song when she was ironing and preparing us for school the next day was one of her favorite songs. Fly the ocean in a silver plane, see the jungle when it's wet with rain. Just remember, darling, you belong to me. I used to love to hear her sing that song. She would always sing that while she was ironing. And then she got an idea. She said, wait, I'm not working at the M&M cafeteria anymore, downtown Miami. I can find out neighbors who need some ironing done. And I'll iron for them, and they'll pay me. I'll find neighbors who would like to have a sweet potato pie. I'll bake some sweet potato pies and sell slices of sweet potato pie for a dime or a quarter. I'll cook for them. And so what I learned from Mama, she didn't miss a beat. When you got a goal, when things happen, when there are interruptions, when life has been snatched out from under you, don't miss a beat. Find a way to restart your life. Find a way to do something else. See, one of the things that allowed me to become successful as a speaker, people ask me all the time, and sometimes I would vary how I respond. How did you get here? How'd you overcome the odds? What did you have to do? You know, one of the things I did, and I want you to keep this in mind, be stubborn about your goals, but flexible about your approach. I had people with PhDs and MBAs, and we would walk around this big park in Detroit, talking to each other about our goals and dreams, and something happened. I looked at them because of their credentials, because of their education, because of their college training and corporate experience. And you know something? They quit. You know why? They knew more than me. So sometimes you have to be intelligently ignorant. Based upon the approach that we were using, we failed at making a breakthrough. So they gave themselves a limited time, looking for a sign. If you want to create something, is there something that you want to do, you got to give it some time. A watch pot never boils. You got to give it some time. You've got to be willing to put in the work, and if, particularly in multi-level marketing, you don't want to raise your hand and look to see how well you're doing for a minimum of 2 years. When a home is being built or a building, they spend a lot of time on just the foundation. And so they stopped showing up for our walk. And pretty soon, I found myself walking by myself. Let me share something with you. When you have goals and dreams and you're going in a certain direction, that it's lonely at the top. You're going to find yourself in certain situations by yourself. I can tell you this. They stopped coming out to walk with me, and they went back looking for a job. That was not me. That was not an option for me. That's a non-negotiable. No. I'm going to speak. I'm going to find a way. So you have to be stubborn about your goals. and flexible about your approach. And so when it didn't happen as soon as they wanted it to happen, they stopped. I kept going. And that's what you've got to do. Don't stop. Keep going. That's what my mother did. She lost a job at the M&M cafeteria. She couldn't stand on her feet all day long, every day, because of arthritis in her ankles and in her knees. And so she didn't miss a beat. She started ironing and washing our neighbors' clothes and baking sweet potato pies and cooking for some of them. Don't stop. Stay busy. How did you know, Mamie, you can raise 7 children by yourself? I just believed the Lord will make a way somehow. And I'm saying to you, if you keep going, if you keep looking for a way, where there's a will, there's a way. If you keep moving, if you keep falling forward, if you keep getting back up, something's going to happen. Bob Marley said something I like. He said, you never know how strong you are until being strong is all you have. You never know how strong you are until being strong is all you have. It's your only option. And you'll discover, if you don't panic, if you don't run, you'll discover you are stronger than you give yourself credit for being. Don't surrender. Don't give in. Just keep moving forward. Stay busy, moving in the right direction, looking, opening doors, knocking on doors, finding a way out of no way. And here's something else. Because you don't know what to do, so what? Figure it out. Everything that exists at one time, nobody knew what to do. I remember as a kid, we would say, oh, you got as much chance of doing that as a man going to the moon. To illustrate the impossibility of that. We don't say that now. Somebody figured it out. Somebody said, wait a minute, there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way. And as you look at yourself, look at your goals, you might be experiencing a big setback. Your business has perhaps been devastated by the coronavirus. You're just saying, my God, first of all, that's a blow when you have to let people go and you don't have money to pay the bills because the business has been interrupted. Oh, we can open up and people can come in, or we have to close down. And then you say, wait a minute, opening up, all right, and I want my business, but I'm not willing to die for my business. Got to figure out another way. And this is this place where we are. That many times in life, when you're faced with a God-ordained opportunity, brilliantly disguised as problems and challenges, a lot of people give up. They surrender. They run with their tails between their legs. It's a God-ordained opportunity. There are opportunities here in the midst of crises. 3 types of people going to come out of this: millionaires, billionaires, and witnesses, people who stood around and watched. You have something special. You have greatness in you. And whatever, no test, no testimony, whatever is in front of you, you have the power to handle it. But I don't know what to do. Okay, got that. You don't know what to do. Figure it out. You don't have to know what to do. Walk by faith and not by sight. Figure it out. Everything that exists, somebody was willing to put in the energy and the time to figure it out. Everybody. When John F. Kennedy in 1961 called his cabinet and they came in a room and they were going to decide, how can we beat the Russians to the moon? Wernher von Braun, one of the most brilliant German scientists of that time. He looked at Werner. What can we do to beat the Russians to the moon? And Werner said 5 things. Everybody was prepared to start typing. This is before computers. Everybody was prepared to take a lot of notes. Everybody was looking for a long lecture that would take hours to determine how much staff and how much money, what the budget will be, what's the process. Everybody was, but they were set up for that. They went there. It was like a retreat, a mastermind.
The next thing that's important to know, yes, it's possible that you can choose your future and direct the course of your life as you run toward your dream. It's necessary that you have goals, that you write those goals down, that you plan, that you think constantly of how you can begin to improve what it is that you're doing. If it's your presentations, if it's your recruiting skills, whatever that is, it's also necessary that you look for ways to always find a way to pull it out when everybody else thinks that you are defeated. That you've got to take personal responsibility to know that in order to become successful, you've got to make it your personal business to do it. But the next thing, ladies and gentlemen, I want to share with you that some of you already know that it's hard. It's not easy. It's hard changing your life. It was hard when just over 3 years ago in the Penobscot building in Detroit, Michigan, where I was operating my business, and I fell on some hard times, and I was sleeping in my office. It was hard coming into the lobby, and the security said, "Excuse me, Mr. Brown, can we see you for a moment?" And I said, "Yes." And I walked up to the counter, and he gave me an envelope. And he said, "Would you mind reading it here?" And I opened the envelope, and the envelope was from management that said, "This is an office tower. It's not a hotel. Please do not sleep in your office." And I said, "Excuse me, sir." I said, "I just work long hours in creating my business. I'm an entrepreneur. And right now things are bad for me, but they're not going to be this way always. And I just asked for the opportunity to continue to operate like I'm doing. I'm not trying to make this my home." And it was hard coming through the lobby. And sometimes they would laugh. There's a guy talking about becoming successful. And look at him. He's bathing in the bathroom upstairs on the 21st floor. He sleeps on the floor. Him and 2 other dreamers up there. Look at him. It was hard, ladies and gentlemen, coming to speak to people. And I was facing financial difficulties in my own life. I was behind on my bills and my dreams. And I'm saying to them, you can live your dream. It was hard, ladies and gentlemen. It was very difficult to pick myself up each day believing that I could do it. There were times that I doubted myself. I said, "God, why is this happening to me? I'm just trying to take care of my children and my mother. I'm not trying to steal or rob from anybody. Why did this have to happen to me?" It was very hard. And here's what I want to say to you. For those of you that have experienced some hardships, don't give up on your dream. No one could have convinced me by holding on, by continuing to push forward, by continuing to run toward my dream, that one day I would have my own talk show. It's a long shot, ladies and gentlemen, from Liberty City, an abandoned building on a floor, never knowing my mother or father. It's a long shot. Being here with you today in this dome in Atlanta, it's a long shot. No college training, labeled educable, mentally retarded, but I kept running toward my dream. Don't stop. Don't stop. Don't stop running toward your dream. It's very important as you hold on to that dream. There are moments when you're going to doubt yourself. There are rough times that are going to come, but they have not come to stay. They have come to pass. It's very important for you to know that. Don't say I'm having a bad day. Say I'm having a character building day. It's very important for you to believe that you are the one to make this happen. I remember this high school teacher, Mr. Leroy Washington, at the end of school one June, it was just a few days before we were supposed to leave. And I just got my report card. And it indicated that I'd failed history and I'd failed English. And I would have to go to summer school. And I was feeling within myself that I was a failure, that I'm slower than most people in getting paperwork. And I was feeling down on myself and very negative. And Mr. Washington was giving a speech to the graduating seniors, and I was in 11th grade. And even though I wasn't supposed to be in there, I went in there because the speech he was giving, that speech was for me. And as he talked, my heart began to beat fast. Tears began to run by my eyes, and I was in the back just listening to him because he said, and he was a very dramatic man. I still talk to him to this day. He said, as graduating seniors of Booker T. Washington High School, I want you to know that you're blessed and highly favored, and that as you go toward the future, begin to know that you have greatness within you. And if just one of you here begin to envision yourselves as being blessed and highly favored to reach your goals, if just one of you capture the essence of what that means, that you have greatness within you and a responsibility to manifest that greatness, that you can make your parents proud, you can make your school proud, you can touch millions of people's lives, and the world will never be the same again because you came this way. And the students gave him a rousing standing ovation. And as he left the auditorium, I ran down the steps and I caught him in the parking lot. I said, Mr. Washington? He said, yes. I said, do you remember me, sir? He said, no. I said, my name is Leslie Brown. My mother, she works in the cafeteria here. I'm one of the twins, Leslie and Wesley. I said, Mr. Washington, but you know, I got these big dreams. I like talking to people. I love people. I said, I want to work with people, and I got this dream of buying my mama a home. Could I do that, Mr. Washington? He said, it's possible, Mr. Brown. And as he walked away, I called him again. I said, Mr. Washington? He said, what do you want now? I said, I'm the one, sir. I said, I'm the one. You remember me, sir. I'm Miss Mamie Brown's boy. I'm the one. I'm the one. And you must feel that's why you're here, because you are the one. And I remember when PBS first played one of my specials called You Deserve, one Sunday afternoon in Miami, Florida. I had some friends call him to tell him to tune in. And he watched the program. He called me in Detroit, and I answered the phone. And I said, hello. He said, may I speak to Les Brown, please? I said, who's calling? He said, you know who this is. I said, oh, Mr. Washington, it's you. He said, you were the one, weren't you? I said, yes, sir. He said, and you were so crazy. I said, I know, but I'm rich now. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not going to be easy. It was hard laying on the floor of the Penobscot building, looking out of the window, daydreaming, saying, Les, can you do this? Can you make this happen? I used to listen to tapes day in and day out about See You at the Top, my great friend Zig and Dennis Waitley and different other motivational speakers and Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. And Dexter saying, don't let nobody steal your dream. I used to ask myself, can I do this? And something said within me, you're the one. You're the one. And let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. While you're here, and before you go back home to your respective cities and communities, write down at least 5 reasons on why you deserve your dream, on why you won't give up, what's going to make you unstoppable, why you must be unreasonable, because logical, practical thinking says you can't do it today. But if you want to produce unreasonable results in your life, like living your dream and taking charge of your destiny, you've got to be an unreasonable person. You've got to be an uncommon person. So write down the reasons of why you're here. My first major goal was to buy my mother a home. And let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. What will reasons do, Les? Nietzsche said, if you know the why for doing, you can endure almost anyhow. What do you mean by that? If you know why you're doing something, when the hard times come, and they're going to come, when the disappointments and the rejections come, and they're going to come by the truckloads, your reasons will be your rod and staff to comfort you, to pick you up. Once again, I got a saying on one of my tapes, if life knocks you down, try and land on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up. Let your reasons get you back up. I remember when I bought the home for my mother, and she came out of the car. When I opened the door, I said, Mom, I think I know these people in this house. That was my first major goal. And then I couldn't conceal it anymore. I said, Mom, I got this for you. And as she went from room to room, looking at the house and saying, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. No one ever could have convinced me that this could have happened to me. And she looked at me, she said, Leslie, and you caused me so much problems as a boy. You were always into stuff. She said, no one could have convinced me that day when I walked in that house and this lady was holding you and your brother. And she said, ma'am, I want you to promise me 2 things. And she said, what is it? She says, 1, promise me that you won't separate them. She said, I want them raised together. I want them to know each other. I got pregnant while my husband was away in the war, and I can't keep them. Promise me that you won't separate them. She said, I promise I won't. I've never had children. I promise I won't separate them. And she said, promise me that you'll never tell them about who I am, because if my husband ever found out, he would kill me. She said, I promise. And she said that she gave them to us, and she kind of cried, and she was walking out the door, and she looked at my adopted mother. She said, remember, don't you separate them. She said, I swear to God, I won't separate them. I'll keep them together. And she said, as I held y'all in my arms, I never had any children of my own. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew with the help of God, I will do it. And ladies and gentlemen, my mother had a dream of having children and raising us. She didn't know how she was going to do it. You're going to be just like that. And some of you are already there. Well, you don't know how you're going to make this happen, but you just feel within yourself some way, somehow, with the help of God, I'm going to make it happen. Repeat after me, please. No matter how bad it is, or how bad it gets, I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it. Shake somebody's hand on your right and left and say, you got the right stuff. So yes, it's possible for you to live your dream. It's necessary that you associate with winners, that you work your system, that you are relentless, that you never give up. It's you. You've got to take personal responsibility. You've got to make it your personal business to make it happen. And you've got to resolve within yourself that I can do this, that it's hard, but you've got to say, I'm the one. I'm the one to make this happen. I'm the one to become successful in this business. As you work to help other people to become successful, that feeds your success. but you know it's going to be hard. But find out what will make it worth it for you. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to make your dream become reality, the people that are running at their dreams know that it's possible that you can live your dream, that it's necessary, that you're relentless, that you have a plan of action, that you are creative. The people that are living their dream are finding winners to attach themselves to. The people that are living their dreams are the people that know that if it's going to happen, it's up to them. And they're resolving within themselves, it's not over until I win. The people that are running after their dream know they're going to have hard times. They keep on running because they're saying within themselves, I'm the one. I'm the one. No matter how bad it is or how bad it gets, I'm going to make it. The people that are running after their dreams are the people that are hungry. Shake somebody's hand on your right and left and say, you got to be hungry. As you run toward your dream, I want to dedicate this to you that I love very much. I want to thank Dexter and all of you. It's something that I'm known by. It's on our tapes called Choosing Your Future, and it says simply this, that if you want a thing bad enough to go out and fight for it, to work day and night for it, to give up your time, your peace, and your sleep for it, if all that you dream and scheme is about it, and life seems useless and worthless without it, and if you gladly sweat for it and fret for it and plan for it and lose all your terror of the opposition for it, and if you simply go after that thing that you want with all of your capacity, strength and sagacity, faith, hope and confidence, and stern pertinacity, if neither cold poverty, famish or gulf, sickness or pain or body and brain can keep you away from the thing that you want, if dogged and grim, you besiege and beset it, with the help of God you'll get it.
You are an unparalleled motivational preacher. And I use that word very intentionally. You have a way of conveying a message with such chills-inspiring, goosebump-giving power. It's really, really extraordinary to witness, and becomes all that much more powerful knowing that you didn't start there, that wasn't sort of naturally, your beginning, and you've called life a battle for territory.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
That the things that you get in life, Frederick Douglass said, we might not get everything that we fight for, but everything we get, it will be a fight. And I love the quote that life is a fight for territory. And once you stop fighting for what you want, what you don't want will automatically take over. Like getting ready to come here to see you, I want to just, first of all, thank you for the great work that you're doing. I watch you and I study you, and you have had some incredible guests that impacted my life. And preparing to come here, I'm being treated by Cancer Centers of America for fourth stage cancer, which I've been kicking cancer's butt for 27 years. And I've been working on getting a six-pack before getting here. I still got one pack. And I've been working to get some muscles so I can wear my t-shirt, but they weren't large enough, so I wore a long sleeve.
That's amazing, man. Talk to me about cancer. You've had such an upbeat attitude about it. It's really pretty extraordinary. Was that your initial reaction? Did you go through a trough of despair when you first got diagnosed? Like, how have you framed that?
Dr. Alfred Golson, who has since passed, was a very unusual guy. And he told me, he said, Mr. Brown, you have cancer. I said, can you give me a second opinion? He said, yes, and you're ugly too. I said, oh my God. So I didn't have a chance to have fear, because those three words, you have cancer, three of the most feared words in 7 different languages. I saw it as a fight. And from that time to this time, my PSA was 2,400. And that stands for prostate-specific antigen, and now it's below 0 and metastasized to 7 areas of my body, which was a good thing because 7 is my lucky number. Okay, so I never was fearful that I was going to die from it, and I think that I read something by Dr. Norman Cousins. He wrote a book called The Biology of Hope, and he talked about the fact that when something happens to you, you don't deny it, you defy it. And I was defiant that I'm going to beat this, I'm going to handle this. That there are people who many times when something happens to them,
that they embrace it from a place of fear, and it takes them out. And L.C. Robinson said, things may happen to you and things may happen around you, but the most important things are the things that happen in you. And you have to stand up inside yourself and deal with it and handle it. So fortunately, that never bothered me, but I had sciatica pain. That had me speaking in unknown tongues. And I was in a wheelchair for several months, speaking from a wheelchair. And it was something that I dealt with that frightened me. Will this ever end? It was 24 hours. I lost a lot of sleep. It was exhausting, going from all type of specialists in and out of the country. And just one day, it stopped. And I'm glad that I'm past that. You know, I feel like when you go through some stuff, there's some certain things that you don't want ever to see again, and that's what I don't want to ever see again. But fear has not been the biggest challenge that I've faced with the things that I've been dealing with in terms of my health.
Well, talk to me about the process that you go through mentally. So there have been a few times in your life in getting to know your story where they seem like really key inflection points. Being told that you were teachable but mentally retarded, that for sure is something that would define most people, and they would have a hard time escaping that. Being told that you have cancer, that it's stage 4, that they don't know how to treat it, like that's something that consumes most people. How do you build that resilience? So maybe by the time you get to cancer, you've already done so much work, so I get maybe how that one you're protected by the mechanisms you've built, but in the beginning, how did you crawl out from under the labels that people were putting on you?
The easiest thing I've done was to get out from under the labels and to live the life that I live. The most difficult thing I've ever done was to believe that I can do it.
What's the difference?
The difference is that when you don't know what's impacting you, and it's something that's holding you down and you're not aware of it. The great anthropologist Margaret Mead was in a restaurant in London, and a guy was serving her and said, "There's several Americans here tonight." And she said, "Is that right?" "Yeah." So let me know when you serve them dessert. I'll tell you exactly how many are here. He said, "Oh, you couldn't possibly." And so he came back and said, "Okay, I've done it." And she got up and she walked around and she came back and she said, "There are around 25 here." And he looked at the roster. "How did you know that?" Say, "In America, we eat differently from you when we eat a dessert. You eat it from the crust toward the tip. We eat it from the tip toward the crust. When you eat a slice of pie, how do you eat yours?"
Definitely, yeah, from the tip back to the crust, for sure.
Yeah, okay, and so there are things that when you, in my situation, when you live in a dominant culture that is designed to destroy your sense of self and your belief in yourself, and you have to learn ways in which you can begin to connect with this power that you have within yourself to handle where you are. The key is to be constantly in a perpetual process of discovering the truth of who you are and fighting constantly to look for ways in which you can escape the inner conversation. I speak to audiences around the world, and I train speakers as well, and I tell them that when you speak, that there's an objective that you want to achieve when you speak to an audience, because how people live their lives is a result of the story they believe about themselves. So you as a speaker, when you speak in this program, when people see you, what you do is distract, dispute, and inspire. You distract people from their current story with your guests and the questions that you ask. Through the process of the ongoing questioning and the way in which they respond and the things they have learned, you dismantle their current belief system and inspire them to create a new chapter with their lives. And so, but that's an ongoing process of constantly interrupting that conversation, what psychologists call your self-explanatory style, because life is going to beat up on you in so many ways, and many things, they come back, negative thoughts and how you feel about yourself, they don't die. They come back once you stop doing the maintenance work on your mind, listening to motivational messages, going to seminars and workshops, spending time quietly listening to the still small voice within. Who am I really? Is this really me? Am I giving my best? Am I just reflecting what's around me? Because all of these various things affect how we show up in life. And so having a strategy to continuously find ourselves reaching higher. Robert Schuller had a book, it's not very popular, but I loved it. It's called Peak to Peak, U-P-E-A-K to P-E-E-K, because you're constantly reaching higher to find out and discover your better self.
One of the things about you, Les, is that your life is such an example of what's possible. I mean, everybody, I want you to just picturing this about this beautiful man. I want you, he's born, his mother ends up giving him to adoption to Mamie, he and his brother. They live in these conditions. He's 10 years old. His mother has to go away for a while. He's got to support the family. He's had all these incidents he's had to observe up close. There are other ones with his mother when she's cleaning houses and this woman claps her hands because she's got to know when her mother's in her room because she's going to steal something, which his mother would never do. This man goes on to influence millions, I mean, literally millions of people's lives. And then this is what's great about all of us making our dreams come true. When you make your dreams come true, the dreams of other people and dreams you can't picture also come true, because then he influences this goofy dude, me, 20-something years old, working at an orphanage, and it inspires me to change my life. So it's just, your life is such an example. And what's interesting to me, Les, is it was mainly tied to mom, meaning you wanted to do something great for your mother all your life. And that was bigger, I think, than any obstacle that got in your way. I'd like you to share this with people, because I think most people don't understand the power of having something big you're going after that means more to you than the pain you're going to have to go through in order to get it. I don't think enough people set huge, big goals that are from the heart. Don't you agree?
Yes, you said that. I was listening to you last night. You know, Dexter Yeager, as you know from Amway, he said, if the dream is big enough, the odds don't matter. And so when you say dream big, that's major. One, there's power in pursuit, because as Jim Rohn said, it's not the accomplishment of the goal that matters. It's what you become in pursuit of the dream in the process. Because when you have a big dream, it will introduce you to a part of yourself that you don't know right now, that you will never discover in your comfort zone. Because in order to achieve that dream, you've got to die to who you are now. I must die daily. You must die to who you are now to give birth to who you are to become. I believe that all of us have stories of greatness in us. And follow me as I say this, as this download. We all have stories of greatness within us. In the beginning was the Word. Thou shalt decree a thing, and shall be established unto you. When shall the kingdom of God come? Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. When shall it come? The kingdom of God cometh not by observation. They shall say, it's neither lo there, lo here. Behold, the kingdom of God is within you. And that kingdom is voice activated. So when you speak, people who are in a dark place, you will bring them out into the light. When you speak, somebody's got a gun to their head. When you speak, they'll realize life is God's gift to me, and how I live my life is my gift to God. When you speak, someone who's depressed and feeling anxious will remember, be anxious for nothing. I'll keep thee in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. So that's the power that you bring. And all the products that you have on YouTube that how ironic. They said, coincidence is God's way of staying anonymous. I've been so marinated listening to your stuff. And then you've been listening to me. Come on, look at God. What a mighty God we serve. Come on, you can't make this stuff up.
That's like my honor to think that you listening to my stuff. I got to tell you, you guys, you just get what I told you all, you just have this treasure. It's like, you never want to stop hearing from Les. He's just remarkable. And the way you pull things and download them from all these places, it's mind blowing. I wish I were that great. You
are the messenger and you are the message. That's made. You got people who are speaking out here. It's been hijacked with speaking to sell. We sell people on their greatness. We sell people on the things that they need to do now, the methods, the techniques, the strategy to create the next greatest version of themselves. And when we do that, we know that when we make that kind of impact, we know that we're in the place of what Leo Tolstoy, the Russian author, he said, what in the meaning and purpose of my life that will not be undone and destroyed when I'm gone? And the people that listen to your program and their mind and their vision has been expanded, you give them a vision of themselves beyond the adversities of what they're experiencing in this place where we are right now, and help them to begin to live their life from a place of optimism, that they're going to impact other people, and those people are going to impact other people. And this work that you, as much as you have chosen this, you were chosen for this. And this work will not be undone. You're going to impact generations yet unborn.
People that are hungry, believe if you do what is easy, your life will be hard. But if you do what is hard, your life will be easy. People that are hungry believe what Zig said when he said, if you give enough people what they want, they will give you what you want. People that are hungry believe always strive to get on top in life because it's the bottom that's overcrowded. People that are hungry are uncommon people. They are say yes to their dreams. They say yes to an opportunity where they can develop their entrepreneurial skills, where they can develop their mind and their leadership skills, where they can become versatile and flexible and create and build a business they can be proud of. People that are hungry have a vision of themselves when they leave here, leaving a legacy and not liabilities. People that are hungry understand that most people die at age 25 and don't get buried till they're 65 because they're not willing to take a chance on themselves. People that are hungry are a rare breed. They're risk takers. I don't know what you want to do. Seemed like yesterday when I was the new kid on the block. Now at 68, I'm the old time. I used to think people in their 40s were old. Now that I'm 68, I feel like I served at the Lord's Supper. And I know I look young for 68 because I used mascara to cover my gray hair. I was over there asking Maria. I said, Marita, can you help me with this mascara? She said, oh, you look just fine. My kids say, Daddy, you look distinguished with your gray hair. I said, 68, I'm not trying to look distinguished. I'm trying to look young. I got to tell you this story. Don't tell anybody, please. I gave this speech at the Georgia Dome. And after I finished, it's called It's Not Over Till I Win. And after I finished, somebody came backstage and said, Mr. Brown, I know you're tired and our speaker canceled. Do you have enough energy to do another program? I said, no, I'm tired. He said, we can pay your full fee of $25,000. I said, the Lord is able. So they took me over to the Georgia World Congress Center. And it was an intimate setting. People were very close to the stage. So I looked in the room, and then I went in the restroom and got my little Mademoiselle mascara out to cover my grape, you know, have a mustache and everything. So I came in the room. The lady wanted everybody to know that she knew me. So she said, there he is, Les Brown. I came up on the stage. She holds a cheek out for me to kiss it. I kissed her on the cheek and left this big black smudge on her face. I said, oh my God. So I didn't know what to do, so I just sat down. So the people down front start saying, there's something on your face. She looks at me, she said, what are they saying? I said, I don't know. Then one nosy lady went over there, opened up her pocketbook and gave her a mirror. Now nobody asked her to do that. Getting in the Kool-Aid, don't know the flavor. She looks at, see the big black smudge on her face. She said, how did this get here? I said, I don't know, you think maybe some of this rubs off? Well, The reason I'm telling you this, don't worry if I kiss you today, because Marie said, you don't need it, you'll be just fine. You look distinguished. Whatever. How many of you like to learn how to improve your presentation skills? Raise your hand. We're going to do a webinar that will walk you through a process and teach you how to tell your story, so you can speak in your community on a volunteer basis and be able to make a difference.
Les, there's one story that I listened to many years ago, and I've listened to it recently again. And even though I watched your interview with Tom Bilyeu really on the
Yes.
Impact Theory, which was fantastic.
Thank you.
Genuinely, it was. The depth of that interview, I learned more about you then than I think I'd learnt about you before, because of the questions that he was asking you. It was were you there?
Yeah, I was there.
Genuinely, that was just a world-class conversation between two guys that were clearly very intelligent and willing and open to share.
Thank you.
But the story that makes me always smile and it always warms my heart was when you got the job at the radio station.
Yeah.
And it just, because it reminded me of me when I was a kid, you know, facing rejection.
Yes.
And how I dealt with that. Would you just share that story for my listeners?
Are you serious?
I love it so much. It was just such a great...
Oh my God, Spencer, are you serious?
I just want, it was
by
so
the way,
cool.
Give the overview of
ladies
that.
and gentlemen, I wanted to get a job at a radio station, and I was looking for a way to make it possible to earn enough money to buy my mother a home. And so this high school teacher, Mr. Leroy Washington, he gave a recommendation for me because he spoke to me and changed my life. I was labeled educable mentally retarded in school, and he told me that someone's opinion of you does not have to become your reality. And that interrupted the vision that I had of myself. And so he asked me, what do you want to do with your life? I said, I want to buy my mother a home. He said, how do you plan to do that? I said, I like to be a disc jockey. He says, very good, here's my card. Go to WMBM radio station on Miami Beach and tell Milton Butterball Smith I sent you there. I trained him. I said, yes, sir. I went to the radio station. Hello, Mr. Butterball. How are you, sir? My name is Les Brown. I'd like to be a disc jockey. And he said, do you have any experience? I said, no, sir, I don't. You don't have any experience in broadcasting, journalism? I said, no, sir, I don't. He said, I'm sorry, we don't have any job for you. I was devastated with rejection. I went back and I told Mr. Washington, I said, Mr. Washington, they said no. He said, don't take it personally. Go back again. You got to be hungry. He said, some people are so negative they have to say no 7 times before they say yes. So I went back again. Hello, Mr. Butterball. How are you, sir? My name is Les Brown, sir. I'd like to be a disc jockey. He said, I know what your name is. Weren't you here yesterday? I said, yes, sir. Didn't I tell you no yesterday? I said, yes, sir. He said, why are you back today? Sir, I didn't know whether or not someone was laid off or someone was fired, sir. No, nobody was laid off or fired. Now get on out of here. I came back the next day, talking loud, looking happy, like I was singing for the first time. Hello, Mr. Butterball. How are you, sir? My name is Les Brown, sir. I'd like to be a disc jockey. He said, weren't you here the last 2 days? I said, yes, sir. Why are you back today? Sir, I didn't know whether or not someone got sick or someone died, sir. No one got sick or died. No one was laid off or fired. Don't you come back here again. I came back the next day, talking loud, looking happy, like I was singing for the first time. Hello, Mr. Butterball, how are you? He looked at me with rage and said, go get me some coffee. And I said, yes, sir.
I love that.
And yes. And so I learned something from that experience about persistence. You know, Og Mandino said, persist until you succeed. And so I became the errand boy for the disc jockeys. I teach people, give before you ask. I would serve them. I'd get their lunch and their dinner, and I'd stand in the control room, watch them memorize their hand movements, and I visualized myself being behind the microphone, knowing my time will come. And then one day, it was a Saturday afternoon, and I was the only one at the radio station, and a disc jockey by the name of Rockin' Roger was drinking while he was on the air. And I was looking at him through the control room window, walking back and forth, young, ready, and hungry. I was saying, drink, rock, drink. Drink, rock. I'd go and get him some more if he'd asked me to. And then pretty soon the phone rang. It was the general manager. I said, hello. He said, young boy, this is Mr. Klein. I said, I know.
He said, Rock can't finish his program. I said, I know. He said, would you call some of the other DJs in? I said, yes, sir. I hung the phone up. I said, now he must think I'm crazy. I called my mama and my girlfriend, Cassandra. I said, y'all come out on the front porch and turn on the radio. I'm about to come on the air. I waited for about 20 minutes and I called him back. I said, Mr. Klein, I can't find nobody. He said, young boy, you know how to work the controls? I said, yes, sir. He said, go in there and segue the records, but don't you say nothing here. I said, yes, sir. I hung the phone up. I said, now he must think I'm crazy. I got Rock out of the chair. I put a fast record on by Stevie Wonder called Fingertips, his first hit. I said, look out, this is me, LB, Triple P. Les Brown, your platter playing Papa. There were none before me and there will be none after me. Therefore, that makes me the one and only. Young and single and love to mingle, certified, bona fide, and indubitably qualified to bring you satisfaction and a whole lot of action. Look out, baby, I'm your love man. You gotta be hungry. Thank you very kindly.
I really appreciate you sharing that story. That for years I've listened to, and now I
I've
can
been
get
saying
it.
that
I get it
for
live.
51 years.
Wow.
That's how so. But even at 75, I still enjoy it because I teach speakers. Many times the speakers tell a story, they just run through it. Like an artist who's been singing a song so often, and they just improvise.
Yep.
You know, my former wife's Gladys Knight, and she does a song.
Your former wife is Gladys Knight?
Yes, I used to be the conductor of the Midnight Train.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and so she would sing Midnight Train to Georgia, but she always did it the same way you bought it. And I love that. And I told her, I admire that about you. And so when you give a speech, you want to always tell it like you're telling it for the first time.
Yeah.
Because people in the audience, they're hearing it for the first time. And those who've heard it, they're going to follow along with you. And they want you to do it the way you did it.
Yeah.
And so there are people in the audience yesterday when I was doing it, they were saying, drink, rock, drink. They were waiting on me. They were with me step to step. And I enjoy that when you can come into a room of strangers and you can orchestrate an experience and people begin to set back and their shoulders are high and they have this hunger in their eyes. I say, you gotta be hungry. And then somebody will say, I'm starving.
Oh, this is epic.
I love this so much.